place you do not know.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you on our current presentation. We are very happy and privileged to welcome Professor Yossi Leshem of Tel Aviv University. I am Julia Newman. I am the third co-host, and well, most of you know me already. I just want to say a personal introduction, a short one. The first time I've heard Yossi Leshem's name was back in 1996 when I was a volunteer in ICF. ICF stands for International Crane Foundation, which is located in Baraboo, Wisconsin. And this is when I heard Professor Leshem's name for the first time, and I was told that he's a genius and he is the best ornithologist in the world. And he knows everything about every single bird, more or less. And ever since, I keep hearing his name, and ever since I love cranes. So I'm so pleased to be able to listen to Yossi Leshem, and I'm sure you will enjoy the presentation as well. So I will mute myself, and Yossi, please unmute yourself. And we're ready for listening, and thank you for joining us.
Can you hear me now?
כן, אנחנו שומעים אותך היטב.
So it's a great pleasure to be with you today. And thank you, Noah, for introducing me. I know very well Archibald, who is the #1 crane expert in the world. And he's from, as you said, from Wisconsin, from the Crane Foundation. I've been there, and I was highly impressed from his work. And we are trying to go in his footprints in Israel. So I'm fortunate, first of all, that my hobby is my job. And I'm working and studying bird migration for 5 decades in Israel. As you know, Israel is a small country in a junction of 3 continents. From the political point of view, it's a disaster. We are all the time in the news. But talking on bird migration, we are one of the hotspots on the globe. And I'll tell you soon about my studies with the Israeli Air Force, but we know nowadays that over Israel, twice a year, we have 500 million migrating birds flying over. So 1 billion birds are flying over a very limited airspace. And this is, of course, a unique phenomena. And because we are in a junction of 3 continents, we have also about 540 different species of birds. So just to compare, for example, in the United States, you have 2 species of eagle. You have the bald eagle and the golden eagle. In Israel, you can see 12 species of eagle, the ones who are coming from Europe and Asia, and they're nesting here. So if you are an eagle lover, you have to leave the States and come to Israel, which is in a much bigger diversity. So the first slide, which I'm showing here, I wanted to start with a bird, which you can see flying near Masada, and this is a bearded vulture. And unfortunately, the last pair, which was nesting in the valley, was a bearded vulture. And on this slide, you can see on the left side, our 9th president, Shimon Peres, and near him you can see Professor Mendelssohn from Tel Aviv University. In 1994, they went, Shimon Peres was leading a delegation to the Negev desert to find the ways, at that time it was a British mandate, and to get a permission, they will never give you a permission to go there. So they made an expedition with a cover story. This is a zoological expedition, and Professor Mendelssohn was leading it. And while they went in the desert, suddenly a bearded vulture, which is a big vulture of 3 meters wingspan, like a Californian condor, flying very low over the head. The Hebrew name of bearded vulture is Peres. At that time, Shimon Peres was called Shimon Persky. He had the Polish name. And the professor started to shout, Peres, Peres. And Shimon Persky was looking for a Jewish name. And on the spot he said, okay, I'm changing my named from Persky to Perez. At that time, we didn't know this is a scavenger, but we were very proud that our president is named after a raptor. And as you can see, Israel, as I said already, is located in the junction of 3 continents. So many birds are flying over. They are avoiding to cross the Mediterranean. And we are like a huge bottleneck, like a highway for 500 million birds twice a year. For example, this eagle, the lesser spotted eagle, the entire world population, 120,000 eagles are flying over Israel. And from our studies, we learn they know to come precisely almost on the same day. So for example, the economists made a big study. There are now in the world over 100 million birders. Only in the States, the hobby number 2 is now birding. Number 1 is gardening. Number 2 is birding, not hunting. So for birders to come and see this eagle is, of course, a big adventure. And they are coming over Israel, and they are using the hot air, the thermals, to move from Europe through Israel to Africa. We have about 600,000 white storks. All the white storks almost of Europe are flying over. Pelicans, which was already mentioned, all the pelicans of Europe, 50,000 pelicans, are flying over Israel. Now the pelicans is the biggest migrating birds. The wingspan is 3.5 meters. The pelican weighs about 10 kilos, so they cannot fly by wing flapping. They need to soar. They are using the hot air, the thermals, and they are riding the thermals and gliding. That's the reason they are flying only at daytime when the sun is hitting the globe. At night they are stopping, and then they are coming and stopping in Israel. But what we found out, that the pelicans they can fly 5 days with no food, but then they need to eat at least 1.2 kilos of fish. So when in the past, they were stopping in the Hula Valley in the northern part of Israel, but the Hula was dried out by the government. So the pelicans are now going to the fish ponds. And this is, of course, a big conflict. So what we did, and we are doing it now for a decade, we are making feeding sites. We are buying from the farmers fish, and this is a water reservoir in Emek Hefer on the coastline. And twice a week, we are coming with a big, and all the pelicans, they learn that they can come and feed from our fish, which we are buying for them. And this is, of course, something which looks very, very impressive. And the pelicans, they see each other. And here you see now the car coming with the fish. And here are the fish out of the lorry. And after the pelicans can have the 1.2 kilos of fish, they are flying to Africa, to Southern Sudan. There they will stay all the winter, and then in the spring they come back through Israel to the nesting sites in Europe. So the same is done with the pelicans and with the cranes. We are feeding the cranes, we are providing them food, and then there is no conflict with the farmer. Now the question is, which way do we want to see the Middle East? The conflict with our neighbors, the Palestinians, or what we are doing, we are trying to use the bird as a platform between people. And our title of a big project I'm leading now since 1996 is called Migrating Birds Know No Boundaries. The birds are not belonging to the Israeli or the Palestinians. They're coming from Europe and Western Asia to Africa and their way back. So we have a big educational program for the students. And that's one program. The other program that I'm leading is, as you know, unfortunately, the Israeli farmers, the Palestinian and the Jordanian, are using a lot of pesticides to kill the rodents in the fields. So since 1983, we started to establish nesting boxes for the owls. The barn owls, they are living near people, and if you make them a nice house, they are coming to nest there, and a pair of barn owls are feeding about 2,000 to 6,000 rodents per year. So the farmers who have the owls, they stop to use pesticides. And they are like the ultra-Orthodox in Israel. A pair of owls have between 6 to 12 chicks every year. So they have an excellent appetite for rodents. They eat the rodents, and the farmers are not using them. We started in a kibbutz in Beit Shean Valley in 1983. It's daily out. This is a kibbutz which is using mainly friendly environmental agriculture and organic agriculture. And we started with 40 nesting boxes. Now we have in Israel 5,000 nesting boxes. So after the peace treaty with Jordan in 1994, you can see here on the left side a General Mansour Abu Rashid. We decided, because we saw some of the owls are moving to Jordan and to the Palestinian Authority, and we started to join forces. And this project is now together with the Jordanian and the Palestinian. Here you can see the Jordanian General Mansour Abu Rashid holding a barn owl. Now you have to understand, for the Muslim, the barn owl or the other owls are a bad omen, bringing bad luck. So we had to convince the Muslims that the owls are bringing good luck because they are eating the rodents. And that's what the general is doing with us, teaching them they are bringing good luck. And you can see Palestinian farmers and Jordanian farmers suddenly are holding and smiling. So the story of the barn owls and the which are operated like pest control agent is not only an environmental big story, it's only bringing, we have now about 600 Israeli farmers, 200 Jordanian farmers, and 100 Palestinian farmers. And here you can see in the slide, an Israeli farmer with the Palestinian and Jordanian farmers. The Israeli is very proud to provide them the dates from Israel. And this project works since 2002 with a high success. And here you can see a seminar in Jordan, when at the end of the seminar, the farmers and the conservationists and the scientists are dancing together. So I think the birds has the power to get people together. Even the political situation is so complicated here. With the birds, we can get people together. And more than that, 10 years ago, in the 60th anniversary of Israel, I brought General Mansour to our parliament, to the Knesset, and he gave a speech in the Knesset, and about 300 members of the Knesset and people came to hear him. We made an exhibit in the Knesset. On the right side, you can see at that time, Mr. Ruby Rivlin, who is now our president, was the speaker of the Knesset. On the left side, you can see Gilad Erdan, who is our ambassador in the United Nations. He was at that time the Minister of the Environment and the General in the exhibit in the Knesset. At the end of the day, Mr. Rivlin told me, Yossi, this was the best day in the Knesset for me the entire year. But you know, I'm already 73. At that time, I was 63. I told him his name is Ruby, his nickname. I told him, Ruby, maybe everyone who makes an event in the Knesset, you want him to live happy. You said this was the best event. But he told me, Yossi, I'm trying for 6 years now to bring a VIP from Jordan, and they didn't want to come to our parliament. You succeeded to bring one because of the birds. So when we are talking on bird migration, I think there are three unique aspects of migration. First of all, the timing. As I told you, the birds are coming almost, and the same event is also happening between North and South America. And the birds are coming almost on the same day. They have an amazing navigation ability, and they can fly for huge distances. For example, you see here on the left side a bird which is called Arctic tern. The Arctic tern are nesting in the northern pole, and in the autumn, they are flying to the southern pole. And then in the coming spring, they fly back to the northern pole. So an Arctic tern, which weighs only 200 grams, are flying around the globe every year, 42,000 kilometers. So, and they are living about 20 years. So in their lifetime, they are making about 800,000 kilometers with no lubrication, with no any treatment. And they are very sensitive to the length of the day. When the day becomes shorter in Europe, the birds, the small birds like the warblers or the sparrows, they started to eat a lot, and they can, if a warbler which weighs about 8 grams, he can in 3 weeks accumulate fat and becomes a bird of 16 grams. It can double its weight. We can sit now and eat on breakfast, lunch, and dinner steaks. We can never double our weight in 3 weeks. The birds are doing all this much better than us. And why are they doing this? If they have the weight with the fat, they can fly by active flight, and they can waste energy till they come to Southern Africa or to Kenya or to Tanzania. So they can fly in formation. You see, they can fly 500,000 birds in one flock, and they never collide each other. And how do they do it? As you see, this is a bird which is called red knot. The bird is flying from Siberia, you see, through the ocean till Australia and New Zealand. And the bird accumulates fat. You see, a bird of 133 grams becomes a bird of 234 grams. And then they are flying, what we learned from these birds, that when they leave Siberia, we put on them radios. A Dutch scientist put radio on the bird, and the bird is flying for 11 days, 24 hours a day, every hour, average velocity of 50 kilometers per hour. Can you imagine? The bird is flying 11,000 kilometers without rest, 11 days. And then when they come to New Zealand, they are exhausted. They have not any resources of fat, they eat again, and they can do it again. So if you are a bird lover, Israel is really heaven. You can enjoy the big numbers of birds and many species. But if you are a pilot in the Israeli Air Force, you are in a problem. Because if you have so many birds, the Israeli Air Force, which is a huge Air Force, with much bigger than many other countries because of the political situation, I learned in 1983, at that time everything was top secret, that the Israeli Air Force lost in 3 decades 11 fighter jets crashed with collisions with birds, 3 air crew were killed, and they have 75 collisions with a damage of 1 to 10 million each dollars. And I asked the flight safety colonel, what are you doing? He said, this is part of our life. If you are flying, you are colliding with birds. The birds are flying already 60 million years. We are flying only 110 years. This is part of our life. And at that time, in 1983, I looked for a subject for my PhD. And on the first meeting with the colonel, I told them, listen, we have to share a new research in Israel, half and half. You pay, I make the study. And they agreed to cover the research. And the idea was very simple. The idea was to try and find out when are the birds coming and leaving Israel, what height are they flying, what routes, if it's permanent, and then map where the birds are and change all the flight system of the Israeli Air Force and just separate between the flights. So we put across the country from the Mediterranean till the Rift Valley, till the Jordan Valley, every kilometer I put 2 bird watchers. I brought every year about 70 volunteers who were coming because for them to see so many birds is heaven. So they just paid their ticket. We gave them in the kibbutzim free lodging and food, and they were studying the bird migration. So we found out that you can, every species, find exactly the time of coming and leaving. Then I was flying with a motorized glider. You see, this is a motorized glider. And the idea was, it has a motor, you take off. I started every year in the auto migration, from the Hula Valley on the Lebanese border, and I was flying with the same flock every day between 5 to 9 hours to measure the height of the thermos where they're flying in the air. You see my glider, it was a pilot and me in the glider, and then we are gliding like the birds, wingtip to wingtip, and this is of course a fantastic sight to see the migrating birds from the glider. And I tell you, I told many people that this is such a unique experience, which if you come again to Israel after COVID-19, we have now 5 gliders. You go to Megiddo Air Force Base and you take off, you join on the migration, and we made already about 70 bar mitzvah events. The kid of bar mitzvah goes on the glider, we bring him closer to God, and we give him a bit to fly. And I found out even you can buy in the canteens of the IDF, the flights, the wings of the pilots, and the grandfather give it to the kid. Then you have a nice celebrating a lunch, and this worked perfectly. So we are using the glider to map the heights. We found also radars. You see, this is a Russian radar in Latrun, where the Armor Memorial Site in 1991, when there was the big emigration from Russia, I found a Russian general, and we brought a Russian radar, and you can see here the coast of the Mediterranean and a line of 120 kilometers of white storks. So we used the radar and the glider, and we even used the drones, and we made new map for the flights of the Israeli Air Force. It was called Bird Cloud Zone. They stopped to fly there at the heights, and immediately, since we made the new flight regulation, since 1984, the number of air collisions dropped down dramatically by 76%, saving the Israeli Air Force till now $1.5 billion. And of course, more important is the life of the pilots, of course, and the life of the birds. So since then, I am with the Israeli Air Force. Later on, we started a new project, and you know there are GPS that you can put, as you see here on the white stork, you can put a device on the back of the stork and follow the birds. Every minute I can know where is the bird on the entire globe. You can put it on your husband, on your wife. It's through the internet. You can see where they are moving. So, but we did it with the storks. And in 1996, Angela Merkel, the chancellor, she was the Minister of Environment. So I came to her, and I told her they gave us 1.5 million euro to put radios on 120 German storks, and we started to follow the storks. So we gave the storks Jewish name, Christian name, and Muslim name to make it a global project. And now I wanted to show you, I hope it works, one of the storks, which was called Princessa. The kids, we made a big website, and you see the storks is leaving Germany, moving through Turkey, Bosphorus to Israel, up to Sudan. The husband, the male, is going to Spain. The female doesn't need the husband with her all the year. So she stays in Sudan for 2 months along the Nile, and then the Princessa, the stork, she is moving at the end of November till Cape Town, 11,000 kilometers from her nest, and everything is online. The students can follow the bird online. She stayed all the winter in Cape Town. She can feed there from fish and frog, and then almost on the same day, they are going back home to the same nest. Princess did it for 13 years. We followed the same bird going back and forth from Germany till Cape Town. Can you imagine? And now I wanted to show you the summary of my study of 2 decades of following German storks. We have about 200 storks, and look, all the storks of West Germany are going from the Gibraltar, because over the Mediterranean there are no termites. They cannot fly over the Mediterranean. So the West Germany are going to Africa through Gibraltar, but most of the storks are coming over Israel, over the Middle East, along the Great Rift Valley till Cape Town. Every dot is a stork with a radio transmitter with the GPS. Can you imagine? And the students in the school can follow them online all the time. And on the spring, you see they are going back home almost exactly on the same route where they went in the autumn. So just imagine a German stork is navigating from a tree in Germany to a tree in Cape Town, 11,000 kilometers. If there are strong winds, they can do it much better. So some people, when they want to talk on someone who is a stupid guy, and you have the item bird brain, you know, small brain, but the brain of the birds are doing much better. You know, now I want to go to the university or a place that I don't know, I have to use the Waze. The birds doesn't need the Waze. And Cornell University did the same with waders from Alaska, from Siberia, going till Australia. This is Professor Fitzpatrick, the director of Cornell Laboratory for Birds, who started this, and he made a big project which is called eBird through August only. He had about 800 million observations. So we made a very big, when he got the money from the Germans, I went to our Minister of Education at that time, and he matched the German money, and we made a big website, and we have now 520 schools in Israel which learn about migration and follow the bird. This worked so good that the American government, through the USAID, gave us another $1.5 million to make the same story with schools in Palestinian Authority and in Jordan under the title. And we put also radios on griffon vultures. And here you can see a griffon vulture, which we caught in Israel. He is nesting in Jordan, and we have feeding station. We put caracas for vultures in the Ramon crater in the Negev. So this vulture is coming every day to have some kosher meat in Israel and goes back to Jordan. And we put also the pelicans radio transmitter. This student, Ron Efrat, was studying the pelican. You see on the back the radio, you see the text. And here you can see now it's much more advanced, and we can now follow the pelicans every second. We know about the location, the height, and the velocity. They are in a flock of 3,000 pelicans, and you can see how they are gliding from a thermal to another thermal on the coast of Israel. So the information now with science is a big story for us. Another student of mine, he's studying golden eagles in Switzerland, in the Alps. And just the people of you who are married, I just wanted to show you now, we can learn a lot from the eagles. I show you now a pair of golden eagles. I show you a pair of golden eagles in the Swiss Alps. Look at them. The blue is the female, the red is the male. And look, every second they are now getting a thermal on the slopes of the Alps, and they are flying together as a pair of golden eagles. You see, they are all the time together. So with this high technology, we can follow them. And as I told you, you could put it on your husband or your wife, and then you see where they are moving all over the places. So this is now fantastic information we can accumulate. So as I told you, this is a bird which is called common chiffchaff. A bird of 7 grams can move from Europe to Africa, even she's so small, with a brain of 1/4 gram. They are doing it much better than we are doing it. So what I learned from the birds after 50 years, that's another lesson to take home. We have to be humble, and we have to understand even the birds are small. They are doing many things much better than we are doing. The story of the barn house, I just told you briefly. As I told you, the barn house are feeding mainly on rodents. And now, after we put so many radios on barn house too, we found out that in the Bet Shean Valley, on the border of Jordan, we have now 5 pairs, that the male is a Jordanian, the female is an Israeli, or vice versa. The male is Israeli, the female is Jordanian. They are nesting together. They don't know boundaries. They don't care about politics. 2 years ago, I gave a lecture to several ministers in the Knesset, and the Minister of Religious asked me, Yossi, so what are the chicks, Muslim or Jews? The barn house, of course, don't care about that. And 4 years ago, we had our biggest story. For the first time ever in the world, as far as we found out in the literature, we found a male of a barn owl with 2 ladies, 2 females, nesting together with him. Bigamia, you know. And in this area where they are nesting on the slope of the Jordanian hills, there are many Bedouins. Maybe they learn something from the Bedouins. But they raised with the 2 females 19 chicks. Can you imagine to raise 19 chicks with 2 ladies? This is really a very complicated job. And here you can see the 2 ladies. You see the 2 females, and when the females are brooding, you can see on their bottom, there are no feathers. They lose the feathers because they have to put their body close to the eggs to warm the eggs. And as you might know, the temperature of birds is 41 degrees. We are 37. They are up to 41 degrees. So the 2 ladies were sitting on the eggs, but the male has no patch because he has to bring food for the 2 ladies and 19 chicks. Not easy. So we are trying to tell the story all over the world. For example, 4 years ago, we went with the Jordanian general and with a Swiss friend who is an expert of barn owls to, we have the World Economic Forum every year in Davos. So we came there and we gave a lecture together with Shimon Peres in Davos. And then we convinced the president, a year later, the president of Switzerland, he brought all the ambassadors in Switzerland, 150 ambassadors in a farm in Switzerland with 2 nesting boxes like in the Middle East. And the president of Switzerland told them the story of the Middle East and the barn house. And I think that now you see in the picture, we think that the barn owl changed the dove. The dove is not bringing peace here, but the barn owl is doing a much better job. So all the ambassadors came to hear about our story. He became, of course, with the Jordanian general, with the Palestinian flag. And then the highest surprise was, at the end of the meeting, the ambassador from the Vatican came to us, and he told us, I was highly impressed from your job. As you might know, if you've been in the Vatican, all the soldiers in the Vatican are Swiss soldiers. So we told the ambassador, that the Pope Franciscus is very keen to protect the globe. He is a guy who is very much interested to protect the globe. So he got us a meeting we have been last May by the Pope for 1 hour, the same team, with the general and the Palestinian, and we told him about our project in the Middle East. Unfortunately, you see, I have to cover the face of the Palestinian because of the political situation now. The Palestinians are still working with us, but they don't want to be exposed because then there is a lot of pressure on them to stop to cooperate with Israelis. But the Pope was highly impressed with what we are doing. Now, I have to tell you, I am a scientist. The best journals for scientists to print our studies is Nature and Science. If you have a paper in Science, immediately you say, wow, this is a good scientist. So, but about not more than 3,000 or 4,000 people will read your paper. But if you meet the Pope and you get him excited about what you are doing, about 1.5 billion Catholic people are getting to listen to the Pope. So I think this is another target we are trying to do. So what I wanted to show you now, this story with the migration in Israel was such a big story that a website in the States, which is called 21C, decided to make a story about my studies, but for students in the school at the age of 10 years. Oh, sorry. Oh, 1 second. Can you hear the music?
יוסי, אנחנו לא ממש שומעים את הקולות.
לא שומעים?
לא טוב.
לא שומעים.
להבין.
לא שומעים?
אנחנו שומעים רעשים, אנחנו לא מבינים.
באמת? אני אעזוב את זה. טוב. Okay, I skip it. To sum up, I think that this work, which I told you we are doing, I think the main message to take home is that if you join forces and work together, especially if you want to protect the environment, you have to work together. And if you work together, you can win it. And as I think I heard it the first time from African Prof, if you work together, I think you can even fish on a highway. But you have to know where you are aiming. And I think you have to be, and this I took a few years ago, I was in South Africa. Our public bar is presently not open because it is closed manager. This is a very simple message to understand. So I think that what I was telling you in the 45 minutes was the story of the birds in Israel, which has a very wide range of activities, of education, of friendly environment, agriculture, of flight safety with the Israeli Air Force. I'm 73 and I'm still doing my army service for the Air Force because it became such a big story in the Air Force. They have now a big garbage dump near Chaserim Air Force Base, where all the cadets are learning to fly, and there are about 30,000 black kites. So I have students who we are studying now and trying to solve the problem. So this is a big future. I think the biggest story is, and I believe, even I'm not objective, that Israel is well known in the world because of our archaeology and history. I think the story of the birds is also something which is really unique for a small nation like Israel. And if we develop it in the coming years, we can, as I told you, we don't need 100 million birders, but we have already over 50 to 60,000 birders who are coming every year to Israel to enjoy the birds. We got from the government now funds to develop a big infrastructure that everyone can, even you are not a keen birder, you can get a guide and go and enjoy the pelicans or the cranes in the hula, or in Eilat, the raptors in the spring and the autumn migration. So this is also an impact of ecotourism. In the Hula Valley, we have now about 40,000 wintering cranes. Someone make a study how much money it brings to the settlers in the Etzba Galil, in the Upper Galilee, 100 million shekels, about $28 million each year, because people are going for bed and breakfast, going for their zimmers, and going and using all the facilities. So the bottom line is that all of you are, of course, invited. If you are again in Israel after the COVID-19, you are most welcome to contact me or contact my colleagues and enjoy the birds in Israel. And people are slowly understanding this is one of the biggest stories for our nation. So if you have now more questions, I'll be more than happy to reply any questions. Thank you very much for listening.
Yossi, toda rabba. Thank you very, very much. That was fascinating. We do have a few questions. Would you like to see it on chat? Would you like me to read it for you?
Yeah, maybe better you read it to me and I'll reply. Okay.
Okay, sure. So I will start from the beginning. Okay, let me see. We have so much said over here. Okay, that was after the technical things. All right, so the question number one is, what are the best months for bird watching in Israel?
Okay, good. That's an excellent question, because that's another advantage of Israel. Not only do we have so many birds, we have also an excellent weather. So you can come in the spring migration, which is March, April, and May. The high season is middle of March to middle of April, but any time in March, April, and May is good for the spring migration. The autumn migration is in August, September, and October till the middle of November. But then we have also the wintering birds. So if you come from October till March, in the entire winter, we have thousands of, and tens of thousands of ducks, the cranes, small birds, and if you know where to go, you can enjoy them. And then in the summer, we have also some of the birds who will be here only in the summer. For example, we have a bird which is called short-toed eagle. This is an eagle which is feeding only on fish, on snakes, okay? So the snakes in the winter, they are in the ground. But when it becomes warmer, they're coming out of the ground. They are eating the snakes. And we have in our web camera, in our website, which you have seen, birds.org.il, we have 6 web camera online, and you can see the entire circulation of the nesting birds. We have 6 raptor nests with cameras. So from January till May, when we are the vultures and the eagles and the buzzard, you can, and owls, you can see their life cycle. And this year, because of the COVID-19, because many people have been at home, the numbers jumped up from 6 million hits that we had in our cameras. We have almost 13 million hits. So you are most warm invited from January to come to our web cameras and enjoy the birds. So the only July, August is a bit hot here and not too much activity. Otherwise, the 10 months you are, whenever you come, is a good time to enjoy the birds.
Okay, all right. So, well, there were a few questions, general, maybe we can get a general list of which birds fly when. I don't know if this is possible.
Yeah, of course. Because as I said, the birds are coming almost at the same week. So we can tell you, for example, I didn't talk about it today. We have in our western wall, in the Kotel, we have 80 pairs of swifts. The swift is a small bird with very narrow wings, and they're coming every year on 28th of February and leaving after 100 days when they raise their chicks in the Kotel in other towns. Now, the big story of the swifts is that the swift are the best flyers, much better even than the Israeli Air Force, because the swift, when they jump from the nest, for 3 years, the swifts are all the time flying. They never land. They can, you won't believe it, they eat small insects, and they, by catching them on wing, when they want to drink, they just fly over water and take a sip of water, but they don't land. They are sleeping on wing, high altitudes, and their brain, again, when I'm talking on bird brain, the swifts, half of the brain can get asleep with one eye, and then the mid of the midnight, the other half of the brain can get asleep and sleep. So the swifts for 3 years, they are all the time on wing. They are even mating on wing. And only when they are becoming adult after 3 years, they are going to a big cliff or to the Kotel. They go between the big stones, and there they nest. They have 1 or 2 chicks. And when they jump out of the nest, then again for 3 years, they will fly to Africa and stay. So we have the storks are coming earlier because they eat insect, then are coming the eagles and so on. So we know exactly when every species is coming and where they are staying. There's no problem.
Okay. Gail wrote, we have birders that count the raptors here in San Francisco Bay Area every year. Which is the best season to join the count in Israel?
So the count of the, first of all, if you are talking on raptors, on birds of prey, the best place is Eilat, because Eilat is on the northern part of the Red Sea. So the raptors who are soaring from Africa to Europe and Western Asia, they are coming to Eilat, to the mountain of Eilat, and from there they penetrate Jordan or go along the Great Rift Valley. So Eilat, from the middle of February, you can see, for example, the steppe eagles. These are eagles who are coming the earliest because they are eating mammals. Then are coming the honey buzzard, and so on and so on. So Eilat is the best from the middle of February to the middle of May. In the autumn migration, you can see the honey buzzard on the first, and the storks on the first 2 weeks of September. Then we have, for example, Levant sparrowhawk. It's a species of hawk that 90,000, all of them are coming over Israel in 10 days. So if you're coming between the 15th of September to the 25th of September, you can see all these hawks coming. Then are coming the lesser spotted eagle. And the last one are the steppe eagles. So mainly, as I said, September, October, March, April, and the middle of May are perfect for raptors. Then you have in as you said, in San Francisco, the accounting. But if you're an American, there are places like Hawk Mountain in Pennsylvania, where on the ridge of the Appalachian, you have a place for counting raptors. And another hot spot for the United States is Cape May. If you come to Cape May in eastern New Jersey, there is a Audubon counting center, and you can go there and enjoy Cape Cod and see all these raptors on migration.
Okay. How are the birds captured to attach the cameras and tracking devices?
This is a top secret issue, but I will tell you, there are different systems. For example, the raptors, we are putting a pigeon with something like a bra with 7 looses, and the raptor migrates. You see the pigeon on the ground, and then someone is pulling a string, and the pigeon is moving a bit. And then the raptor dives very fast. You know, the raptors are fast flyers and trying to catch the pigeon. But when we have a trap which jumps on the raptor and catch the raptor. And that's, for example, one of the systems that we are using to catch the raptors. The small birds, we have mist nets. We have several ringing stations. For example, I didn't talk about it because time is limited, but on the Knesset, on the land of the Israeli parliament, we have a ringing station. It's called Jerusalem Bird Observatory. If you click in the internet, Jerusalem Bird Observatory, you can see all the information. They are putting mist net. They are putting small nets, which are very tiny, and the birds, when they are flying between the trees, they are caught by the nets. People are taking them out of the net, putting the ring or putting the GPS and releasing the bird. And in Israel, we are catching every year over 100,000 small birds, like passerines or waders. So if you are coming next time to Jerusalem, every day in the morning on the migration, about 7 months a year, you can go before breakfast in the hotel to the Knesset. It's just in the Knesset. I think this is the only parliament in the world which has a ringing station on the land of the Knesset. It's called the Rose Garden. Everyone will show you where it is, and you don't have to pay for it. You just sit and enjoy. We have many young volunteers and elder volunteers who are helping us in the job, and the same. We have a ringing station in Magan Michael on the coastline, and there is one in the Hula Valley, and there is also in Eilat, where I told you the raptors are flying. There are salt ponds. In the salt ponds, you have also a ringing station.
Thank you. Who are your students who will carry on your work?
That's part of the job. I'm fortunate enough that, I tell you another story. I'm living in a field center of the Society for the Protection of Nature, which is an NGO like the Audubon. I started to work for the NGO, it's called SPNI. I started in 1971. I was already a keen birder. And when I came to Jerusalem, I saw there is not a bird club in Jerusalem. So at that time, the mayor was Teddy Kollek, that I'm sure you know his name, Teddy Kollek. I went to Teddy Kollek and I told Mr. Kollek, I want to establish a bird club in Jerusalem. And he looked at me and he told me, young guy, at that time I was young, I was 24 years old. He told me, young guy, Jerusalem is for archaeology and history, not birds. Birds are in the fields. At that time, I had already the chutzpah. You know what is the chutzpah, yes? I had the chutzpah. I said, Mr. Mayor, you don't know anything about birds in your town. There are a big variety of birds also in Jerusalem. And he said, okay, what do you want from me? I told him 60,000 shekels. And he told me, okay, you got it. And I almost fainted. I couldn't believe how easy you can get from a mayor 60,000 shekels. And we put an announcement in all the schools. And very fast, we got 100 kids in the first year who joined our bird club. And then these kids become guides. And now we have many hundreds of birders who grew up in Jerusalem and in many other towns. So now the birding, for example, every year in Hanukkah, for 40 years, we have in Tel Aviv University a joint venture of Tel Aviv University and the SPNI. And we have the biggest hall in the university, is smaller hall, 1,200 seats. Every year in Hanukkah, we have 1,200 bird lovers coming for our lecture day. This is really, I think, we are very proud that the teacher and students and academic staff and nature lovers. And last year we celebrated 40 years of our lecture day in Hanukkah. Unfortunately, this year, this is the first time ever we cannot make it. You know why? Because of the COVID. We cannot bring 1,000 people in one hall. So this year it will be 10 lectures. Unfortunately, it will be in Hebrew. Every day we give 2 lectures in the Zoom. And every day we will have, in 5 places in Israel, 5 trips. So I believe thousands of people can go in the field and enjoy the birds and listen to our lectures in the evening. So the ones of you who speak Hebrew, you just can click on our website again. You can see the program and the titles of the lectures, and you can enjoy it. But again, I apologize, it's in Hebrew.
Okay. Well, Yossi, right now we have Margie who wrote, Yossi, you are a treasure. So we'd like to, I can only agree. We don't have any more questions right now. So ladies and gentlemen,
Yossi, I agree with the treasure comment, but more remarkable than even your presentation today is your leadership skills and your proven leadership in that whole area, which is just absolutely world class. And we appreciate it.
I thank you very much. And as both of my parents came to Israel from Germany, you know, in Hebrew you say Yeke, and my parents, I'm a Yeke, so we have to finish in time, and it's 3 minutes to 10. So it was a pleasure to meet all of you in this presentation. And if any of you sends an email to me, you can find it in the internet. I'll be more than happy to send you more films about Israel and more materials that you can look through the internet. And more important, when you come again to Israel, let's go for one birding day. I can assure you will enjoy it. Thank you very much, and all the best, and keep safe.
Thank you, Yossi. That was great.
So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
ביי, יוסי, תודה רבה, המון המון תודה, זה נהדר.
Wonderful.
Okay, great. Okay.
Thank you.
Just amazing. Who
All
would
the
have
best.
thought?
Bye bye.
Who would have thought that Israel is so rich in birding?
All the best.
Well,
יוסי, תודה, המון המון תודה, ולילה טוב.
לילה טוב,
Light
להתראות.
it up.
טוב, להתראות בשמחות, בריאות.
Wow. Holy mackerel.
That was it. I'm so energetic that I feel tired. I don't think he feels tired. He is. That's what he is.
I
Yeah.
haven't seen that much energy.
Holy mackerel. He's living like a 10-gram bird at 80,000 feet. He just doesn't stop.
Yeah. 1,000 heartbeat a minute.
Right.